on the top. In the back. Should be there somewhere. So this will be here or there? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Gana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Gana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Gana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Jamuna Tira Banasari Jamuna Tira Banasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Yashodanandana Brajaganarandana Jamuna Tira Banasari Jamuna Tira Banasari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gaura Pimanandi. Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa. Pri Radhakacharya Stotra Satya Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charanarvina Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Nanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandiviti Founder Charya's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namasarya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samavata Bhakti Vrinda Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jaini Thai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada Ki. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Taksuranbaritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanditam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vansakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacham Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nisreya Sayalokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, as Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Om Surabhyaya Namaha. Mukam karoti vasalam pagum nangayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our morning Bhagavatam class. We are continuing to read from Canto number 1. And today we're looking at chapter 2. Okay. Entitled Divinity and Divine Service, text number 10. Right? Yes. Kamasya Nindriya Pritir Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jignasa Narto Yash Sheha Karma Vihi Kamasya Nindriya Pritir Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Narto Yasheha Karma Vihi Kamasya Nindriya Pritir Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Narto Yasheha Karma Vihi Kamasya Nindriya Pritir Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Narto Yasheha Karma Vihi Kamasya Nindriya Pritir Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Narto Yasheha Karma Vihi
Kamasya Nindriya Pritir Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Narto Yasheha Karma Vihi Kamasya Nindriya Pritir Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa
Narto Yasheha Karma Vihi Mataji
Kamasya Nindriya Pritir Labho Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Narto Yasheha Karma Vihi
Kamasya of desires Na not Indriya senses Pritihi satisfaction Labha gain Jiveta self-preservation Yavata so much so Jivasya of the living being Tattva the absolute truth Jignasa inquiries Na not Artha end Yaha Yaha cha iha whatsoever else Karma bihi by occupational activities. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. A life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Kind of repeat after me. Life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Purport. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense gratification, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. Prabhupada one time was telling our mentality should be how did he put it? Not to live to eat, but to eat to live. Most people, they live to eat, which means sense gratification. But we eat for living, for the ultimate higher purpose. Yeah. Because the body is made of senses, which also require a certain amount of satisfaction, there are regulative directions for satisfaction of such senses. But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense gratification. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning. But foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is a search after the absolute truth. That's a big topic in itself. I think there are many big topics here in the purport. The seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagement in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth. And that sort of engagement will make one happy, because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning is not there, but translation again. Life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Very strong, powerful statement. And in the purport, as usual, Prabhupada is also adding and elaborating more on this whole, we could say, philosophy of life. We were discussing, I think the other day, we were just making reference to the word kama. Kama generally is equated to sense gratification. As we can see here in both the text, the translation, and the purport, because we have this material body, the body does require some kind of certain basic necessities need to be met, especially in the matter of eating, the matter of sleeping, the matter of defending, and matter of sex life. Sex life is actually the culmination in the material world of the highest expression of sense gratification. And it can only be regulated or ultimately put to an end if we learn to develop something that is more attractive than gross material sense gratification in the form of sex life. It's very interesting, actually. One of our Vaishnava acharyas, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in one of the purports in the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada refers to him, as he often does. He will take wonderful realizations from these great Vaishnava acharyas. In this way, we have in the Bhagavatam not only Srila Prabhupada's own personal realizations, but also so many of our Vaishnava acharyas who have commented on the Bhagavatam And he mentions how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur speaks about sex psychology, which will immediately attract so many people in the material world. But this kama, the origin of this kama means actually attraction. The origin of that attraction is Krishna. That is, of course, spiritual attraction, which is far, far superior. You know, people think that the transcendentalists, they're missing out on so many things in the material world. But people in the material world who think in that way, they're the ones who are missing out. They're the ones who are missing out on what is on the spiritual transcendental platform, isn't it? Otherwise, why so many great personalities in the history? I mean, they're all these personalities are there in the pages of the Bhagavatam. Very highly developed, very intelligent, very scholarly personalities. Why they have rejected? Why the Goswamis, who were materially very well situated, isn't it? Why they gave up everything? Because they found something better. That nice story, I think, comes to mind. Sanatana Goswami, who had the touchstone, right? I think everyone knows that story. So, touchstone is something very attractive. You know, if you have something that can turn everything into gold, wow! It's like, you know. So most people, as Prabhupada is mentioning, are attracted to this gross material attraction of. There's attraction. It is also called rasa. There's two kinds of rasa. There's material rasa and there's spiritual rasa. So if we don't know about, or if we cannot experience the spiritual rasa, by nature we'll be forced to go for the material rasa, because we cannot live without rasa. We cannot live without this. We cannot live without attraction. We cannot live without desire, isn't it? So, in the very first line of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining how the whole modern civilization is totally misdirected. People are following blind leaders who are devoid of the basics of transcendental knowledge, which begins, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, that is especially the responsibility of those who are having some realization, as very nicely, I mean, very famous verse or line that Prabhupada would quote all the time, Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa, which is very similar to Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now that we have acquired this human form of life, that is the first aphorism, first mantra in the Vedanta Sutra. Now that we have acquired this human form of life, directly, plainly it is mentioned here, actually, the only purpose for this human form of life is to become self-realized. And one cannot fully become self-realized if one has some kind of affinity or attraction for things that are transient. Therefore, asat sanga tyaga e vaishnavasas. Sri sangi eko sadhu Krishna abhakta ar. Three things that one should actually give up. Asat. There is sat and asat. Asat, what is temporary? That is meant to be, we could say, the motto of Vaishnavas. Those are serious. Prabhupada uses the word serious in the purport. We have to become serious about the spiritual life. So, asat sanga tyaga e vaishnavasya Sri Sangi. And Prabhupada explains, Sri Sangi doesn't mean only attraction for women. Men are attracted to women. women are also attracted to men. That is Trisangi. Works both ways, isn't it? So attraction to the opposite sex, or in modern day society, which would be promoted attraction to the same sex. This is destroying and inhibiting our ability to actually develop spiritually. Sri Sangi. Then Asadu means materialistic persons. We should be very cautious in closely, intimately associating with those who are materialistically minded. And for us, for our devotees, majority of our devotees who are grihastas especially, because most of our grihastas in so many ways are forced to associate with non-devotees. And therefore we have to be cautious, because they have their ways of doing, they have their habits, they have their coffee breaks or whatever. And they talk about so many things. So, and we have to, some of this we cannot avoid completely, in the sense that we're forced to associate to be, but we need to be very cautious not to just go along and to limit, yeah. So, Sri Sangi, Asadu, and Krishna Abhakta. They might be Bhakta, but they are not Krishna Bhakta. Krishna Abhakta. So we have to be careful. So many people are devotees of this one, of that one, etc. We should be very cautious in associating with those who are not devotees of Krishna, isn't it? So that is also explained how bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakale ashanta. Bhukti, those who are materialistic minded, generally grossly materialistic minded. Those who are gyanis, and even those who are yogis, because they have either gross or subtle desire for sense gratification. And that is what differentiates the devotee, bhakta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakale ashanta nishkama. Devotees of the Lord, they are nishkama, without material desires. Without material desires, because they are developing spiritual desire, isn't it? They are transforming. They are dovetailing, as Prabhupada would say. They are dovetailing that propensity for desire, that propensity for for happiness, because ultimately we are all seeking happiness, but finding that happiness in a higher taste, higher knowledge. Susukam kartam yavegam. When we have this, when we're cultivating the highest knowledge, Rajavidya, Rajaguyam, Pavitram Idam, Uttamam, Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam, Susukam kartam yavegam. So Prabhupada would say, what's the simple definition of a devotee? In one word. In one word. Happy. Devotee means someone who's happy. No anxiety. Doesn't need to take a sleeping pill at night. People in the West, they take sleeping pill at night, and they have to take they cannot take up wake up sleeping pill. But yeah, people, a very large percentage of people in the Western countries, or those who follow modern way of life, they have to take pills. So much of medication. They're addicted. They become addicted practically, isn't it? So of course, sometimes we have to take some medicine. Here Prabhupada is mentioning how we should endeavor to keep good health, isn't it? Chanakya mentions two ways in which people can be happy. And Yudhishthira Maharaj mentions a third one. You want to be happy?
Yes.
So he mentions two very important things. One of them was connected with our discussion yesterday in the program. So Chanakya, he says, if you want to be happy, live locally, localized living. Localized living. Village life is localized living. If you live in village, as you're meant to live in village, you don't need a car. Your car is your bullock cart. And it's very low on petrol, no petrol. You don't, yeah. Localized living, you can walk to work, because your field is not too far away. It's either behind the house or within 1 or 2 kilometers. Yeah, save so much money. No insurance in the car, no petrol in the car, no repairs, and no accidents. You never hear a bullock cart bumping into another bullock cart. I've never seen it. Simple living. So localized living. Those who live localized. You know what Prabhupada said one time? What is the definition? I think you like this statement from Prabhupada. Anyways, because it's mentioned by Prabhupada, I have to say it. What is the definition of intelligence? Very interesting. Prabhupada gave a very short but to the point. What is a simple definition of intelligence? You'll never guess what Prabhupada said, so I'll tell you. Prabhupada said, one who doesn't leave his village. Oh, think about that. One who doesn't leave his village is intelligent. Because everything is there, if there's proper guidance. So, coming back to Chanakya, he says, in addition to being localized, one should avoid incurring debts. One should not become a debtor. One should not use one's credit cards. Best not to have credit cards, because then it's too tempting. Actually, majority of people, they live on credit, isn't it? They have a nice house, they have a nice car, they have so many nice things, but it's on credit. They're forced for the next 34 years, the whole life, to pay. Ultimately, they pay double also, because they pay interest, high interest. Krishna consciousness is very down to earth, very practical. And the third way to which, by which one can be happy, as mentioned by Yudhishthira Maharaj, I'm not sure where he mentions that, but I heard it like this. Yudhishthira Maharaj mentions, if one can digest one's food, you'll be happy. Means if we are healthy, only if we're healthy we can digest food. So therefore Prabhupada, he would always write, hoping this finds you in good health. You're ever well wisher. Prabhupada actually gave so much of importance to health. Because sometimes devotees would ask, what is better? I should attend Bhagavatam, I should chant my rounds, or I should read. So Prabhupada actually wrote it down one time. Most important thing, first you keep good health. First is you keep good health. And then chanting. Chanting, I believe, is second. No, actually attending Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavatam, and chanting. Reading is last. Not to minimize, but in terms of priority. We need to know what are the priorities. So if we are close to nature, if we eat food, food that we know where that food comes from, if we know our food, even just knowing our food, the mind becomes more peaceful. You know, every day we should think, we should, you know, we should know that the less we know about how we are surviving in terms of food, then because most of us actually are eating food which is, we should know, is not ideal, isn't it? We're offering that same non-ideal, not ideal food to the Lord, etc. Yeah. So Prabhupada actually explained how the main problem in modern day society, which is of course referred to here, main problem is that people are not, most people are not at all serious about spiritual life, and many people are becoming Gnostic, non-believers, atheists. So that means that we cannot properly understand what is the purpose of life. And so that's why in the Bhagavatam, also in the 7th canto, when Narada Muni gives most important instructions in the context of varnashrama, and this is sometimes a little difficult for householders to read some of these purports, because Narada Muni mentions, and Prabhupada actually elaborates, that even householders should not be so worried about money. Should not have to work so hard for making money. I know this is a delicate point. Yeah. We should learn to be satisfied with what comes more naturally, more easily. And this is the most important point to understand, that Prabhupada and our acharyas explain. Like every day, we get different disturbances. Things happen that we haven't planned. You know, either it's a headache or stomach ache, or somebody just speaks to us the wrong way. All kinds of disturbances. We don't plan for these disturbances, and they come. So our acharyas explain, in the same way that disturbances come that make us unhappy if we're not Krishna conscious, things that will actually make us happy will automatically come. We don't have to endeavor separately. We don't endeavor for bad things to happen. Similarly, we should not be endeavoring for so-called good things to happen. We should know that good and bad is there because it's a karmic reaction is there. The more we understand this, then only then we can focus on what is the primary goal and purpose of life, to become self-realized. Prabhupada mentions here that one has to become serious, understanding how he uses the word overwhelming. You know, to attain self-realization is like crossing the desert alone. You know, or swimming across the ocean. It is impossible. But Bhagavatam explains that actually for those who are devotees, that ocean becomes like, the water contained in the hoof print of a calf. Very easy. And so that's why, again, to connect with our theme yesterday, our discussion yesterday in terms of varnashrama, the whole Vedic culture is meant to facilitate this this progress and advancement in spiritual life by keeping our life simple, by minimizing our so-called necessities of life. I had one godbrother from Canada who had told me that he had moved 2 years ago, but he still had 50 boxes yet unpacked. You know, nowadays people, when they move, because we tend to accumulate so many things, you need to get one big lorry practically. At least in the West, it's like that. We accumulate. We have so many things that we actually don't need. You look at people's wardrobes. It's like a headache to choose what I should wear today. Vedic culture, you wear the same dhoti, or you have a few dhotis or whatever. You know. You can add some color, householders, you know, a little variety. But I mean, it's simplified, more simple. Yeah. And in the Vedic culture also, not like modern day, people have to go for upgrades all the time. People have to go, I mean, people nowadays can expect to have like 3, 4, 5 different types of jobs because we have invented occupations and jobs and professions which are not really in keeping with what is recommended in the Shastra. Normally, traditionally, one had the same job for the whole life. You know, you're a carpenter, you're a carpenter. and then you know, your son, in all likelihood, also becomes a carpenter. It's like automatic Guru Parampara. Natural. So Vedic culture is promoting what is natural, what is original. Opposite is there in modern day society, because we are disconnected with the source of what is natural, the source of what is original, the source of what is actually attractive. Therefore, we are misled, misguided, and we're not happy. In the midst of all that, the more we become entangled in this materialistic way of life, we become more and more, it's like traumatized. So that's why one of the biggest global problems nowadays that's been increasing more and more is depression, mental disease, mental illness, you know, stress. People are stressed out. I was in Sweden a few years back, and Stockholm, capital, and we have a farm community, maybe 1 or 2 hours away from that. I stayed there for 1 or 2 days. They have a temple in the city, and then one devotee was telling me that, you know, one of the big problems in Sweden is the problem of loneliness. Loneliness. Not only loneliness amongst elderly people, because generally people, especially in modern day society, elderly people are forgotten. So they have reason to be. But the devotee was missing that even young people are lonely. Even we have all these gadgets, still we're lonely. You know, where we can, communication is like never as available, you know, as before. Still we're lonely. And because the problem was so acute, the government decided to establish a ministry in the government, a ministry for loneliness, with a lonely minister. And I heard that other countries are also establishing ministries for loneliness. It's crazy, huh? Just call devotees if you're lonely. They'll talk your ears out. It's like, you know, lifeline, right? You know. So, I mean, the whole modern setup is a major, we should understand, major deviation from what is meant to be, from what is the norm. And the more, it's like unending, you know, the complications and complexities of modern day life, and the kind of effect on the body, on the health, on the physical health, on the mental health, emotional, social, everything is just totally, it is the, you could say, Ugra karma at its highest level, practically speaking. Yeah. So therefore the need to to come in contact with this knowledge, and therefore the need for preaching. That's what our sampradaya, our Gaudiya Vaishnava sampradaya, therefore especially is giving importance to preaching. Simultaneously, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also emphasizes not only prachar but achar, sadachar. Sadachar means personally ourselves taking seriously, as Prabhupada points out here in the purport, understanding the rare opportunity to take birth in the human body is extremely rare, and even more rare to get an opportunity to understand the purpose of having this human form of life. As Krishna explains, Bahunam Janmanamanti Jnanamam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sadulabha. Very, very rare to come to that proper understanding of why we are having this human form of life. So in so many different purports of the Bhagavatam, that's why Bhagavatam is meant to be one of our topmost daily activities in terms of associating with what is presented in the Bhagavatam. And in this way, as the text is mentioning, Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa, this human form of life is primarily meant to inquire about the higher things, higher purpose of life. And that is the first of the 7 purposes written, formulated by Srila Prabhupada to systematically teach this Vedic knowledge, Vedic science, because this is where we actually find what is most scientific. Because the Bhagavatam, Vedic knowledge, not only is scientifically understanding and explaining about this material world, this material energy, but especially scientifically explaining about the spiritual dimension, which is, for most people in the material world, totally missing. Actually, in the material world nowadays, even the so-called material, understanding is also incomplete. Even scientists are baffled at different times because they're just basing their limited knowledge on their immediate perception in terms of the material senses, limited material senses, limited material intelligence, etc. So, in other words, what is presented in the Bhagavatam is very unique, and it's only those who have that great fortune and great opportunity to come in contact with this knowledge that they can truly, properly understand both these levels of science, spiritual science, and then material science as well. Yeah, and that is why Srila Prabhupada wanted that we have this display in Sri Mayapur in terms of the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, which will be addressing what is still very confusing, not so easy to understand even for scientists. That is especially depicted in the fifth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. So this is our text this morning. Life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. The more we actually do that, either due to ignorance or due to weakness, because sometimes that may happen also to devotees, even those who have some knowledge, because the material allurement is so powerful, so strong. But the more we allow ourselves to unrestricted sense gratification, not regulated as recommended in the Shastra, the end result actually is that we are simply increasing our suffering. It's like, in one sense, paradoxical, We think we are enjoying, but actually that so-called material enjoyment is further increasing, creating actually, by the law of karma, creating suffering for us. And generally both in this life and the next life. So that can only be material attraction for sense gratification can only mitigate it, can only be checked by developing attraction for spiritual. Spiritual means even above spiritual, as we were discussing the other day, devotional. Devotional happiness guarantees one to not be allured by other forms of happiness, either gross or subtle. So a life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Some thoughts or comments on this? Or objections? Who will object? Who will dare to?
Thank you. As you mentioned that one can just experience the higher taste.
Yes.
It's very difficult to leave the lower taste.
Yes.
Because we will always leave the rasa.
Yes.
You see that like in material world, as you mentioned that environment, and because the sense objects, the moment the senses come into contact with the sense objects, materially perceive happens.
Yes.
However, in the spiritual activity or spiritual life, as we read from letter of devotion that Ado Shraddha, Sadhusam, Bhajan Kriya, Anarthivritti, Nishtha, then Ruchi, then taste from it.
Yes.
So it means, as mentioned yesterday, also the overhauling, the certain prerequisite, then you will perceive the taste.
Yes.
So my question is, Maharaj, until unless we reach to that stage of taste, Ruchi, we will have all the possibility to be allured by
Yes.
the lower taste.
Yes.
We
Yes.
have not tasted.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
Taste.
Yes.
We are in the process, but we have not tasted that high taste.
Yes.
Is that understanding correct, Maharaj?
Yes. Until we come to the mode of goodness, even the mode of goodness, even before tasting, even before, after Nistha, there is, what is it?
Shraddha, Sadhusam, Bhajan Kriya,
Bhajana Kriya,
Anarthivritti,
Anartha-nivritti, then
Nishtha,
Nistha, and then
Ruchi.
yes, Ruchi, that's what I was looking for. So even before Ruchi, in the mode of goodness, one can begin to experience some satisfaction. Some material, it's like the mind is not disturbed as when one is totally under the lower modes of nature, passion and ignorance. So to be situated in the mode of goodness, which is directly connected, we were mentioning, Prabhupada mentions, to be situated in the mode of goodness is directly connected with how well we are able to follow these 4 rules and regulations. Because the less we follow these rules and regulations, the more we remain entangled and frustrated and in anxiety, etc., etc. So therefore, this is all like sadhana. Sadhana bhakti, as nicely explained by Srila Rupa Goswami, is that level where we, by the use of our higher faculty, that's all nicely explained in the Bhagavad Gita, we learn to control the lower self by the higher self. So the lower self are the senses. Higher is the mind. Higher than the mind is intelligence, isn't it? Higher than intelligence is the soul. So the system is and the process by which to gradually rise from the lower level of consciousness, from the lower modes of material nature, is to follow what is prescribed in the Bhagavad Gita. That's why Bhagavad Gita is so important. And by the use of not just material intelligence, spiritual intelligence, isn't it? That's in second, third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Then we can even without immediately developing that ruchi, that higher taste, we will feel just like Evam prasanna manaso, that verse where the mind actually becomes satisfied. Brahma bhuta prasannatma, nasochati na kansati. Most people who come to that, they don't have the understanding of Krishna, who is the source actually of all attraction. But they have there is some kind of ananda that is there, or satisfaction. So yes, so that's why Prabhupada mentions as quickly as possible we should try to come to the Madhyam Adhikari platform. Madhyam Adhikari platform is a safe platform. Madhyam Adhikari is where we don't oscillate so much in terms of being on the bodily platform. And one of the characteristics in the Madhyam Adhikari platform is that one is serious about following these 4 rules and regulations, and one is engaged in preaching activities. And in preaching activities, Prabhupada also, very nicely, there's a purport in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who are already situated in the level of Paramahamsa, of Uttam Adhikari, self-realized souls, they're already connected with Krishna. They're already tasting that transcendental bliss. So Prabhupada explains that's a level that is not so easy to attain. But that feeling and that satisfaction that one experiences being situated on that level can also be experienced by those who are fully absorbed in preaching the mission of the Lord. Yeah, very important point actually, because and this is touching what Prabhupada is mentioning here, the one who takes seriously this one who properly understands how to utilize this human form of life, mainly primarily for the purpose of becoming self-realized. And part of that is to actually help others understand, that means preaching, the futility of material life, the futility of sense gratification. Then that's a whole absorption. The mind becomes very absorbed, should become actually very absorbed in that primary goal of life, and preaching is a very integral part of that. So the point that Prabhupada is making in that purport, I don't have the direct reference, is making this point that even though we cannot immediately, because it's after a very long endeavor and practice, even though we cannot immediately become situated on the level of Paramahamsa. Even before the level of Paramahamsa, we can begin to experience this transcendental happiness, this transcendental mellow, this taste through preaching activities. Yeah. So therefore, since the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because there was a whole debate which still exists today, and it began actually during the time of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his, Bimal Prasad, before becoming Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, picked this up from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and therefore he fully developed, very strongly established the Gaudiya Math, which was and is meant to be, preaching is a preaching mission. Whereas there was another school which is still existing that wanted to be more focused on our personal bhajan. Not understanding that actually when we focus, not that we neglect our personal bhajan, but when we focus, especially whatever it is that we understand and realize in terms of Krishna consciousness, if we share that, because in present day society, in Kali Yuga, in the situation in which we find ourselves, the vast majority of people don't even have the basics. We're fortunate to have the basics, and more than the basics, we have what is coming down, as it is by the Lord's pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. But most people don't even, like in the Western countries, the vast majority of people, now maybe it's changing, but like 50 years ago when I became a new devotee, I never heard about the Bhagavad Gita for the first 25 years of my life. I mean, I'd never heard about Krishna. At least in India, when you're born in India, one may not fully understand who is Krishna, but he'll know about Krishna something. He'll know about the Bhagavad Gita. So many things automatically one will know. But in the Western country, it's like, God, nothing. It's like a big revelation. To me, it was like a big revelation the first Sunday feast to know that something like Bhagavatam exists. My God, there are such kind of books that are like eternal, that are giving us all the answers that we are looking for. I mean, most people, they don't even know that. Right? So once we know that there's such kind of literature, then, we give up very easily science and fiction books. Most of the books that are being sold are just like people's mental concoction, science fiction, whatever. It's all, they're Maya, in book form. So that's why, and because these books are not books. These books are Shastra. These books are scripture, isn't it? Grantha. Grantha is not ordinary book. Grantha. So we have the Grantharaj. We have the king of all transcendental literatures. And therefore our primary business is to just, hey, that that's why when Narendra Modi goes out and on visiting different dignitaries and leaders, and he presents them a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, as you may know, and telling them, actually, this is the greatest treasure that India has to offer to the world, which is true, Vedic culture. Yeah. So the more when we cultivate this knowledge, we become fixed and convinced of this basic understanding, then naturally it's something we want to share with others. And therefore the emphasis, and Prabhupada has continued in the same mood of his Guru Maharaj, isn't it? Those who have life, only those who have life can preach. Yeah. Yeah. And by preaching, we get so much ourselves, isn't it? Because Bhagavatam sessions, it's not only those who are hearing, but those who are speaking also, who gain more understanding. Because you can't just speak nonsense. You have to think about what you speak. So that forces the speaker actually to be more thoughtful and to be more introspective when trying to present the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And if we are hearing, then if we're serious, then we will want to hear more attentively. We will want to be inquisitive about whatever is being presented, either directly in the text or by the speaker of the text. Yeah. Then it becomes like we call interactive. Interactive. Otherwise, why do we attend Bhagavatam class? Why do we give Bhagavatam class? Then the Bhagavatam actually becomes alive. It's always alive, but it's like, some people, they get books and they have them on the shelves for so many years. Ordinary people, and then so many stories, Sankirtan stories are there. Then I opened this book. I had this book for 15 years. My God, I should have opened this book 15 years ago. Yeah. There was one, there are many, very often because people are so enamored, with material energy, they don't want to be bothered. So, but, those who are book distributors because they know that, this guy, he needs, So one time, very often, book distribution happens everywhere. So like in the West, they would go in like parking lots. So many cars are there and people are either coming or going and whatnot. So one devotee was distributing books in a parking lot. Then he saw one car, the engine was on and the windows were up. The guy in the car actually was totally disillusioned with life. He wanted to commit suicide, and he wanted to buy the whatever. So this one book distributor, normally book distributors are quite determined. So he was showing him this book, and this guy was not interested. Then after a while, the guy pulled the window down and somehow he took the book. So after some time, that was relayed or explained later on. So the guy was telling the guy sitting in the car who was thinking about suicide. He said, "Oh, I'll have a look at this book before I die." Anyways, he opened the page of the book. I forget, maybe it was a Nectar Devotion. And then he started reading, and it just meant so much for him that he decided not to die. There's so many similar kind of stories that now I found something that's really meaningful, that's really, significant. Otherwise, those who are not having this knowledge, no matter how sweet talkers they may be, there are many sweet talkers. Most politicians are sweet talkers. They can convince people, but there's no essence. Unless one finds essence is only in Grantha, in scriptures. Other books, practically, that's why Prabhupada relates how his Guru Maharaj one time explained how if all the books in all the libraries in the world would burn, and only Bhagavad Gita remained, there would be no loss. And then if all the books, including the Bhagavad Gita, were burned, and only Bhagavatam remained, also there would be no loss. And then, if all the books in the world and all the libraries, including Bhagavad Gita, including Srimad Bhagavatam, were burnt, and only Chaitanya Charitamrita remained, there will be no loss. Because in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many references from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have this, as Prabhupada would explain, the treasure house of knowledge. These books, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and our whole life, we can and should be molding our whole life based on these books. Yeah. Other comment or? Yes.
If you want to be happy,
Yes.
told Chaitanya, Chanakya, 2 points, but you mentioned only 1 point.
Oh, I mentioned two. I did mention, yeah, maybe you didn't catch the second one. To be localized?
Yeah.
Second one is not to be accepted.
How?
Yeah.
Krishna same thing like found in Mahabharata.
Huh?
In Mahabharata, Krishna and Yushi Maharaj, when they had a conversation,
Yes.
he asked the question, "Who's to kill it?"
Who's happy?
And all the four brothers cannot give the answer. When they try to take water.
Yes.
He told the same thing. Aurini, Apravasi, and Shata Sevani. Here is what you mentioned.
Okay.
So Apravasi means not migrated.
Okay.
Localized.
Yes.
Aurini, they would take some loan. Or and Shata Sevani, the local food which can digest.
Yeah. Local. Okay. Oh, in that conversation, huh? Okay. There you go. So I didn't invent this. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's very practical, no?
Yes.
Very practical.
And finally, he made the point of Ravasi, like not migrated. He said, in this practical sense that, okay, localized living, but he said, Ravasi means who has not left the original place.
Okay, right.
It's only devotee who are there.
Yeah.
Going back to
Yes, yeah. The real
all are
look, yeah, right.
all migrated actually.
Yeah. Yes. Well, very often I when I'm, in front of an audience from mostly taking birth in India, of course, maybe it's less relevant when we are outside of India because we're all foreigners.
Yes.
But even in India, we are foreigners. Because I'm referred to as Bideshi, no? But you're also Bideshi. We're all Bideshi. Yeah. Only devotees can have this understanding.
One point also mentioned practical point about the prasadam.
Yes.
That, and we read in the text also that only for self-preservation we should say the first phrase that eat to live, not live to live.
Yeah, live to, eat to live. Eat to live, not live to eat.
So because this tendency and because we are not so purified. So even though we offer to Krishna, or in our program also we want to offer to Krishna only and then want to serve Krishna. But that the quality of prasadam or the ingredients or as you mentioned is not pure. The purity is one thing. Other thing is the taste. So we think that it should be very opulent, tasty, maybe not healthy, but so much oil and this thing, and we want to distribute very often prasadam. But may not be healthy, may not be good for health.
So is that opulent? Is that opulent to make people, diseased?
So what kind of, because this we often call it, just for, we should be healthy, we should be healthy and preserve our life actually.
Yes.
Once it was here, especially in Grihastha, where Mataji are always thinking about the Prabhujis or the children, what they like and they make the offer to Krishna.
Yes.
As per the case, I mean, they're enjoying the senses in one terms.
We should offer what Krishna likes, primarily, and we should develop in such a way that we learn to be happy with what Krishna likes, and Krishna likes so many things. so many opulent things. Krishna likes, it's like Prabhupada mentions how food, don't mind Mataji's, but a food that is not cooked in ghee is not cooked food. And we have a big problem in modern day society because most people don't cook with ghee, with pure ghee. A lot of ghee is out there, but pure ghee is very rare. And
we have to go back to Varnashram.
yes, yeah, yeah. Well, I was mentioning, Prabhupada is telling how food is our first religion. Very often, Prabhupada, he would make this statement: first is food. When Prabhupada makes the statement, first is food, it doesn't mean that, we have to, for sense gratification. No. First is food for subsistence. If we can learn to solve a food problem, we have no more problem. It's one of our, because every day we have to eat, isn't it? I mean, the body demands, it's a natural, normal urge to eat. And the Vedic culture has that most simple and ideal practical formula. You grow your own food. Then you're guaranteed to have wholesome food. But to grow food, you need to have land. Yeah, so Vedic culture is based on that concept of, well, everyone should be connected with land. And land, for land to be properly producing, then animals, cows in particular, are needed, isn't it? The Vrindavan is, the land in Vrindavan is, why is the land so fertile in Vrindavan? Because the cows, with their fatty milk bag, are dripping milk on the land. Nowadays, we cannot even put water in the land. What to speak of milk? When you put milk, in Mayapur, we will soon be setting up what is called Vyayam Shala. And I don't know if you're familiar, but you need a certain area, and that's where the training takes place. And that soil needs to be like soft as butter. And to make that soil soft, you have to put ghee, milk. Whoa. So once it's set up, you can come and practice it. Yeah. So the soil in Vrindavan, because so many cows are there, right? I mean, thousands, millions of cows is described. How can Vrindavan have millions of cows? That only devotees know the secret. So every day the soil is being, supplied with this rich ingredient of milk that's automatically dripping from the udders of the cows because they're so happy, so personally cared for, So the soil is producing like anything. Mother Earth is just like, wow, take. And now the opposite is happening, Yeah. We're molesting Mother Nature every day, every morning. So yes, those are all given, all explained in the page of the Bhagavatam, and that's automatically, naturally, the Vedic lifestyle, Varnashrama lifestyle, basically, where we have qualified individuals who are able to give guidance, the Brahmanas, they give guidance, the Kshatriyas, they give protection. They also give guidance because they're well-versed also in the Shastra. They are meant to defend Shastra. They're meant to punish those who actually don't follow Shastra. So they have to learn Shastra. Actually, Kshatriyas 3 times a day, according to, in the Kautilya Arthashastra of Chanakya, it mentions how even Kshatriyas 3 times a day, they study Shastra. 3 times a day, the Kshatriyas study Shastra. Oh yeah, right, yeah. for maybe not for as long as the Brahmanas, but they are in connection. They're in contact with Shastra. Where are we? Yeah. And so, so that's why the the lifestyle, isn't it? Tell me who your friends are, I will tell you who you are. Tell me what you eat. I mean, you are what you eat. That explains it. You are what you eat. So if we take only Krishna Prasadam, then Prasadam is sanctified food, purified food. We become sanctified, purified. We associate with devotees, we become purified. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think we can wind up. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki.